Hello and welcome to Class 6D of D21UD Urban Drainage and Water Supply. If you're watching Class 6 A, B, C and D back to back, well done. I can only imagine what that must be like for you. So this class should be relatively short, but you never know. And it's really just a case study SUDS scheme that I just think it's worth talking through, because I think it's quite a good one, as it's quite clearly defined and there's a variety of different SUDS approaches used on site. So the case study relates to what's called a distribution park called J4M8, which is just outside Edinburgh. Now, why it's called J4M8 is because it's on junction 4 of the M8. The M8 is a motorway which connects Glasgow and Edinburgh. So a distribution park is really it's set up so that there's basically warehouses in this development. Goods come in, are consolidated, and then go out again. So the example, the building you can see just behind the stonework there belongs to a drinks distributor. So the drinks manufacturers bring the drinks in, they're stored in that, and then they're repackaged and go out to individual shops, I think. So it's that kind of so nothing's really made here. It's just really goods come in and then are stored for a while and then go out for sale. I guess why that's important is that although there's lots of vehicle movements and that comes with pollution, it looks industrial, the park, but there's no real industrial activities. So there's I guess the pollutant risk isn't as high as it would be in, say, an industrial estate. So it looks like this just now. You see we've got these 4 large units, and there's also development sites still available for construction. The 2 units towards the top have been empty, were empty for some time. I think it looks like Amazon is now using them. So that suggests that the length of time they've been empty for suggests that perhaps the other units won't be filled anytime soon. But let's see how that goes. Even at this scale, you could see that SUDS are part of the development. Oops, sorry. Try to get the pen here. So you have the SUDS point here, and then there's a second one here. Okay, but as you'll see, there's a lot more going on as well as we flick through these slides. So I think we'll start by looking at these 2 buildings here at the top of the development. Okay, so this is just a site plan, and this shows the actual buildings that have been constructed, as well as those that are still planned. So this is the building which is labelled as being for Amazon at the top of the development. This picture was taken before Amazon had moved in, and you can see it's largely unused. You can see the loading bays here for articulated trucks. The reverse into these so they can be loaded or unloaded. Big impermeable surface here in the photograph, so that's your car parking area, and you can see that this side drains that way and this side drains that way, and what it's draining towards is this central drain along the middle here, which will either be an infiltration trench or a filter drain, if you remember back to the earlier notes in this class. Just to the and here's the adjacent building, and you can see it's the same sort of deal. The car park drains down to the drain. So just to the south of that, we've got this large basin, which I think takes flow from the car park to some extent, and also the road. And during rainfall events, you would expect this to fill. We're sort of leaning over the fence taking this picture. It's actually quite deep, and if it was to fill, being quite so close to a road, it would probably be quite dangerous. So it is appropriate probably that there's a fence around this one when you look at the steepness of the sides and how deep it can be. So now we'll look at the top of the site. So we've got so here is where that sign was. I showed you the picture right at the start that said J4M8. And here I've superimposed some of the key SUDS. So what we'll show you pictures of is the upstream extent is we've got this pond stroke wetland, and it drains down a swale. It then goes under the road swale, and the swale continues on and goes down this way, and eventually it goes to this pond here. And what I'm going to do is kind of talk you through that step by step. So you've seen this picture before. This is the upstream extent of the SUD scheme. We've got probably a filter drain here, which is draining both the grassy slope probably, and perhaps also the car park, and it's discharging to this wetland stroke pond here. This pond does have one of those submerged berms that we've seen in IDI SUDS pond schematic in class 6C, which is, you can see it just below the surface of the pond. You will, not in this picture, but when you go along to visit the site. That's the sign was seen in class at the start of this class 6D. And if you remember, this is my old car, sadly no longer with me. Hopefully it's still out there somewhere. So here's the wetland, and I think this is right at the start of the industrial estate, and so there's lots of vehicles going in and out. It's quite visible. I think it's quite a pleasant looking thing. I was there during the summer, collecting samples with 3 other researchers, and actually there's lots of dragonflies and things buzzing around, which is, they're not unusual insects in Scotland, but it's always good to see them. And lots of activity in the pond, which was good, and it was actually quite pleasant. And you would never guess really that it's an engineering asset which is both providing attenuation and also trying to remove pollutants from the flow. It's actually a real asset to the area. So that wetland then discharges downstream into this device. Now, there's, as I was saying in earlier classes, there's a big overlap in terms of how you choose what kind of names you choose to use for your SUDS devices. So in theory, this is a swale because we've got basically a ditch which is taking the flow from A to B, so it's a conveyance device. But you'll see with this one, it's just been maintained, so the vegetation has been cut back, is they actually let reeds grow along the base of this swale. So it's not one where the grass is mown and kept in good condition. They let these reeds grow along, and these can grow to, I think I've seen them maybe 3 or 4 feet high, flowering, and they look quite impressive, and I was actually quite disappointed to see that they'd been hacked back in this way. So in that state, it's what I would call, and you can see there's wet patches here, and that's because of these reeds add to the hydraulic resistance. In that state, I would call this a linear wetland. So it's a long linear SUDS device which is conveying flows still, but it's also providing lots of opportunities for sediment to be arrested by the vegetation and sedimentation, etc., to take place. So I think it's quite a good asset, and it's relatively well maintained, I think, as well, which is good. So the flows from the roof of this building and the car park come into the linear wetland via this outlet here, and then further downstream you could see that the swale reverts back just to a grassy channel. And then at the end of this swale, it goes into this grating here. Now I'll touch on this later, but basically it goes down this grating, and this is because the swale has come up to a junction. It's a roundabout, so the swale obviously can't cut across the junction, and so it has to go under it. And I'll talk about how it does that in a couple of slides' time. So if you like, what we were looking at is what we looked at there was down to here, the wetland, and then the linear wetland, and then I showed you the grating for how it gets under the road. So what we're going to do now is look at this length here. So there's that's the building we were looking at just a second ago. The linear wetland is just the other side of this road going along the front of these cars. So this is the other side of the road, and you can see here is that you've got the swale on the left here. The road's designed so that the runoff from the road just comes off and it goes down to the swale like that. Obviously on its way there you're expecting quite a lot of filtration to happen, and the vegetation should remove a good deal of the sediments there, so that's good. There's a slight problem with this one in sections. This picture doesn't really show it. The grass is slightly higher than the road. I mean, you're only talking perhaps maybe 20 millimeters or so, but it's enough to offer resistance to the flow coming off the road. So what you see is the edge of the road looks a little bit silty there, and that's because the water's getting washed off, but it's the resistance, because that lip slightly higher means it's not readily coming off. Obviously that's something that's quite easily fixed. The stones are really there to stop vehicles parking on the verge. Car drivers tend to park absolutely anywhere. That swale then continues downstream the other side of the road. Okay. And then down it comes, and then again there's one of these grates. Now remember, we've seen that grate in the earlier picture. That was the one that's on the other side of the road. So what happens is the flow on the other side of the road goes, I'll come back to this in the next slide I think, it goes under the road in a pipe and then it comes back up again. So yeah, so that's the grating I showed you the picture of in the last slide. So what happens is that the flow from the other side of the road, it goes down through that grating, it goes under the road and then out again. Now there's an obvious problem here. Obviously the grating is needed to stop people from falling into it, because that's not a good outcome. These devices are quite problematic because obviously there's potential for them to block. I mean, even the linear wetland on the other side of the road probably does quite a good job of removing the larger stone particles from the flow and quite a lot of sands and silts. But nonetheless, I don't doubt if you were to go down to that siphon, there might be quite a lot of material which is deposited there. So that will be maintained from time to time if it's not going to block and become a problem. But it's hard to really see what the alternative is to having something like that. So now we've taken it down to, we've looked at pretty much all this in terms of this part. So the swale now continues around and then heads down to the pond. Directly input into the pond is this this unit's not an industrial unit, warehousing unit, and it's operated by a supermarket called Aldi. So what they have is basically their surfaces they've got to drain. There's this large area here where the vehicles are parked and manoeuvre, all the warehousing duties, and then a staff car park. Now the staff car park is permeable. It doesn't really show well in the picture here, but it slopes down to this corner, and you can see that this corner here is a bit grubby because the surface is blinded. But otherwise, I think this performs relatively well. The warehousing car park discharges into this basin here. So let's have a look at that. So this is the south end of the warehousing car park. You see that you've got drains along the edge of the car park here. Goes into this filter drain, and then the filter drain discharges to this basin. Okay, so you can see the drains along the edge, and those inlets there must be from the car park, which I showed you a couple of pictures ago. Okay, you can't see it, but in there is so these ones, those are the inlets from the car park. Let's get this right. And this one here is the outlet to the pond downstream. And that's what that looks like. Okay. And this is the outlet from the Aldi basin into the pond. Now, this thing here, which looks like a hose in this picture, it's actually a floating filter, which is its job is to collect any oil that's in the flow from Aldi. So I'm guessing that that's there is because there's been a problem in the past, and they've put it there to soak up that spill, and it's just been left, because you wouldn't routinely have that there like that. And that's the pond. So the pond is actually quite sizable. I've not done any calculations, but it's it's a significant size compared to the size of the overall site, particularly given the amount of SUDS that are upstream. And you can see that it's, well, if you like, swans and a goose, and I'm guessing that's a duck over there, and in the distance there's some seagulls. It's actually quite pleasant, particularly given the motorways just over towards the pilot. You can see the sign for the motorway there, telling you it's the junction. So it's actually quite pleasant, and when you go to this, we went certainly that time, you can see there's a path had formed around the pond. So I'm guessing in the summertime when the weather's nice, the staff who are working in these places might go for a walk or sit out to have their lunch, and they walk around that pond. And that path's not been, it's not been designed or built by anybody. It's just a path that's formed because people are walking around that way. So it tells you that people do value this space and the calming effect, I guess, it has on them when you're having a stressful day at work. That is quite sizable, and I think so. There's lots of retention time there and lots of potential for sediment to be removed. And that's it from the other side. You can see the swans. That's roughly where I took the previous picture from. And there's the Aldi building in the distance. So you can see there's another pond on site. I've not shown that in the pictures. This then discharges at this point to a river, and this is the outlet. And now let me get this right. This picture here is the outlet on the pond side. So the water from the pond goes into that and comes out of here and goes to a river downstream. And this is a penstock, so they can vary the flow if needed. What's evident from these channels is that there's not much flow coming out of the pond at all. And I think that's because it's quite a sizable device, so it has lots of capacity to absorb the flows coming from an upstream SUDS system. So so you can just make out the pond there. There's the penstock in the previous picture, and that's the channel that the pond would discharge through. Okay, so all in all, I think it's quite a good SUDS scheme because there's lots of stuff above ground. You can really see how it works, and also it's reasonably well maintained, I think. So it's not full of litter or anything like that. It actually looks quite pleasant, and it's a real asset, I think, to the area, and I'm sure the people working there get lots of value out of it directly and indirectly. So I really hope that quickly looking through those slides over the last few minutes has helped you understand how some of these devices work and how they can be used in the real world. Obviously, if you've got any questions or suggestions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Okay, bye for now.